did the last demo, having successfully created the policy which is going to assign permissions to the role which is going to execute our Lambda. You can see on screen right now that we have the flash screen announcing the success of the creation of the policy. Now it's time for us to move on to creating the role. Over on the left, you can see that we are currently in the policies page. Let's click on roles, which is right above policies, and there let's click on the create role button. Here we are prompted for the type of the trusted entity, and the default selection is AWS service. As the text there tells us, this allows AWS services like EC2, Lambda or others to perform actions in this account. That sounds exactly like what we have in mind, and so we'll stick with that choice of trusted entity type. If you'd like to allow entities in other AWS accounts, that is not in this account, then you choose the second option, the one titled AWS account. If you'd like to use a specified external web identity provider, you can choose web identity. Let's scroll down, and here we've got to select a use case. We've been through this dialog before, and as before, we choose Lambda. As the subtext tells us, this will allow Lambda functions to call AWS services on our behalf. Then we click on next, and now it's time for us to wire up the policies with this particular role. There's a long list of policies here, 749 of them in fact, but there's also a handy search bar where we can type out the name of the policy we just created, SNS sub DynamoDB write. This brings up the policy that we've just created. Note that the policy type is custom and we select it. Now this policy has the required permissions to work with SNS and DynamoDB, but we also need to add in another policy so that this role can work with Lambda. For that, we clear the filter and search for the role AWS Lambda Basic Execution role. This time we don't need to search for it because it's on the first page. We scroll down and find it there and select it. AWS Lambda Basic Execution role, which despite its name is not a role but rather a policy. We choose this is the second policy associated with this role, and we move to the next step in the dialog where we are prompted for the role name. Let's call this Lambda SNS to DynamoDB. There are no other changes that we wish to make here, so we scroll down and click on Create Role. At this point, our role Lambda SNS to DynamoDB has been created. We have the green success message up top, and we can now go ahead and create a Lambda which utilizes this role for its execution. We use the search bar to find the Lambda service, click on it, and that takes us to the dashboard for AWS Lambda. At this point, we've again cleared up our old Lambda functions, so there are no pre-existing Lambda functions in this view. Let's click on the create function